is a philosophical work, and it is a philosophy of language. And in that particular work, he talks about how we should study a language. So certain principles he posit in his philosophy of language, and you can consider the publication of the course in general linguistics in 1916 as the starting point of modern linguistics. And for that particular reason, Ferdinand de Saussure is also known as the father or founder of modern linguistics. Now we are looking at certain statements by Ferdinand de Saussure in his work, or it is better to say a work on his name, because he actually did not publish his work, but after his death, his students, they collected the notes, the class notes, the lecture notes, they compiled them, and then they published it. So Saussure was a Swiss linguist. He belonged to Switzerland, a Swiss linguist, and he was also influenced by the work of Panini. Now, who is Panini? Panini was ancient Sanskrit grammarian. So this influence is very deep, quite prominent, that we find in Saussurean's work. But here we are looking at Saussure's language philosophy. And what Saussure says, everything depends upon relations. Now, which relation or which relationship Saussure is talking about? Saussure is talking about the relationship of signifier and signified with sign. Now, sign is a morphological unit, and Saussure gave more importance to morpheme than phoneme. We will study what is morpheme and what is phoneme, but for now, I can tell you that morpheme is a grammatical unit and phoneme is a sound unit, individual sound segment. That is a phoneme. For example, dog. Now in dog we have three sound: d, o, g. So we have three phonemes here. D is one sound segment, o is another sound segment, and g is another sound segment. But there is only one morpheme, and this morpheme is in the form of a word, that is dog. And someone asked, like, tell me something about this morpheme, then we can say dog is a countable noun. So this is the nature of this morpheme. So morpheme is a larger unit than a phoneme. And when Saussure says everything depends upon relations, and when Saussure gives the concept of sign, so it is better to understand sign as some morpheme. Now, what morpheme can be a lesser unit, a lesser grammatical unit than a word. For example, we have a word unhappy. Now, unhappy. Now, what is un? Now, un means not. So, someone who is not happy is unhappy. So, the meaning of un, u and un is only possible when it is attached to a word, and here the word is happy. Otherwise we can't use un anywhere, and we can't say un means not. So un becomes meaningful when it is attached to a word like happy. So un is a morpheme here. So Saussure says sign is a morphological unit. So any morphological unit, either it is a word or smaller than a word, but a grammatical unit, that is a sign. Now, what relationship Saussure emphasized? Saussure said that in a sign you have a signified and signifier, and they are like two sides of a piece of paper. Now, two sides of a piece of paper is a metaphor. So we can say that signifier and signified, they are associated with a sign as two sides of the paper. They are associated with a piece of paper. So we know that if we want to define a paper, we will say it has two sides. Similarly, if we want to define a sign, we will say it has compulsorily signifier and signified. And what is signifier? Signifier is a sound image, or it is something written, that is also a signifier, but something that is associated with that sound image, that is the concept that is associated with that, that is your signified. In the last class I gave you example of bird. Now bird, and there are so many birds, and when I say bird, and when you hear bird, then this bird becomes signifier for you. If it is written somewhere and when you read it, then also it becomes a signifier for you. And when you read bird and then you think of a bird, any bird, that becomes your signified. So this is how things happen, and this is the meaning of everything depends upon relations. Now, one sign also interacts with other sign. So we don't generally talk in words, like I will say bread and they will say eat. So this one-to-one word is not there. We either use phrases, we use clauses, or we use sentences. So this is the way how we communicate with each other. We can't simply use one word and then you answer in another word, and then I am also using one word. So this is not the way language works. Language works in phrases, clauses, or in sentences. So when one word interacts with another word, then it becomes meaningful. In isolation, there is one word, there is no meaning. If I say building, then you will ask what building? What do you want to tell me about that building? So I need to explain you that the blue building is the office where you will get the form. So then you will understand. So it is not the case that I simply use one word and you will get the entire context and you understand. Sometimes it happens, but not all the time. And in very rare cases it happens when context is shared by both the people, and when someone says one word and then you understand the entire thing. But generally this is not the way language works. One sign interacts with another sign, and this interaction is a continuous process, and through this process the entire language comes into being. We understand this language. Here this is the meaning of everything depends upon relations. One sign and its relation with another sign, another sign and its relation with other sign. So this entire thing goes on. So it's like a chain process. So we think also in a chain process. Sometimes you might have noticed that if you are thinking negatively, then you start thinking negatively. All the things that are associated with that are negative. So you need to break the chain. So it is also said, like when you start feeling low, when you are frustrated, when you are down, when you are feeling negative, then you need to move from that place immediately, and you need to talk to different people on different topics. So this is how we think, and this is also how the language works, that one sign interacts with another sign, then other sign interacts with another sign. This is like a chain process that we have, and there is no ending, because we use language till the day we die. So it's not like after 4 years I will stop talking to all the people that are there around me. It's not the case. So if there is some impairment, if there is some accident, and because of that accident a person lost the ability to talk or to hear, then this is a different case. But otherwise a normal human being uh, uses language all the time throughout his or her life. Now, so sign here is linguistic sign. There are other signs as well, but we are here concerned about linguistic sign only. So there are non-verbal sign as well. If I use this, then you know that this is a sign of victory. But this is not a linguistic sign. So when I say linguistic sign, something that is in written form, in language, or something that is in spoken form, in oral. So that is the meaning of sign here. And when Saussure says sign, it is not any sign like uh, there are clouds, there are black dense clouds in the sky. Now that is also a sign. Now what is that sign? That sign is like now it's going to rain heavily. But Saussure is not talking about that sign. Saussure is only talking about language sign, linguistic sign, either verbal, and in verbal we have both spoken or written. Now Saussure also says one thing, that signified takes precedence over signifier. Now signified is concept, and signifier you can understand as something spoken and written. So that means concept is already there in my mind. That means language is already stored in my mind, and because of that I am using language. So it is not the case that something is, there is no storage and I am using it. That is not the case. So for example, if an application is not stored in your mobile phone, you can't use that application. So the compulsory condition to use a particular application, it must be installed in your smartphone. So similarly, you can understand that first language is installed in your brain, that becomes your signified. That already one system is there, language system is already installed in your brain, and now you are using it, and that becomes your signifier. So we all use language accordingly to different situations, in different contexts, with different people. And why is it possible and how is it possible? Because the signified, the thing, that system is already there in our brain, it is installed. Now next thing is, so this is how we can say signified take precedence. That means signified is before than the signifier. Both signifier and signified are psychological entity. Now you need to understand both the things are psychological entity. Now I am speaking to you, you are listening to me. Now you will ask how it is psychological. Now the question is, because I have a brain, you have a brain, that's why I am speaking and you are listening. So it is very much psychological. It is not like my brain is not involved and I am talking to you, and your brain is not involved and you are listening and understanding everything. It is not the case. So signifier, that means whatever I speak, that is already there in my brain, because my brain is directing me that now you speak like this word is pronounced like this, if you use this phrase, then this is grammatical, this is not grammatical, this will be the sequence. So all the things are already there in my brain, and that's why signifier and signified are psychological, something that is related to brain, something that is related to mind, psychological entities. Now this is the Saussure's model of sign. So you can also understand how you can make a Saussure's model of sign. It's very simple. Signified on the upper and signifier below, because signified takes precedence over signifier. That's why we have make this division, we have made this division, that signified will be on the higher plane and signified will be below. And there is a division, because this entire, this parabola, this type of shape is a symbol of sign, and in that sign you have both the things, signifier as well as signified. So we have written what is signified: sense or concept. Sense, whether something is making sense to us and what type of sense it is making. Whether something is not making any sense, then we have concept. Making sense or not making sense, that particular sense we have, and the concept that is associated. I have given you the example of bird and a concept that is associated with that. And signifier is sound pattern, because Saussure says that spoken is primary and writing secondary. This is very important thing. spoken is primary and writing secondary. Now, what does it mean? If you notice that how you have acquired a language, how you have learned a language, you will find that for initial first 3-4 years, you were simply listening to sounds and you were producing sounds. And when did you start writing it? You start writing it when you entered into some school, some formal education system. So that's why spoken is primary, spoken first, writing secondary. So this is how language uh, language is acquired worldwide. So it is not the your specific case or only in India, but elsewhere across the globe this is the pattern. So that's why signifier is associated with sound pattern, and that sound pattern is also first in our brain, and brain directs us to speak it out. So that's why signifier is a sound pattern, and both signified and signifier are psychological entity. And as you can see, there are bubbles here. You can see here bubbles, and if you if you have read comics books, then generally these bubbles are associated with thinking process. So here you have bubbles, and here you have bubbles. So tree, that means I am saying tree because my mind is directing me to speak these sound t, r, e in a sequence, and then it is pronounced as tree. And that's why it is also psychological. And when I say tree or when I think about tree, then also I have one image of tree. This is one example. You can think of any tree, pine tree or any other tree. So bubbles indicate both are psychological. So this is again concepts which are associated with Saussurean sign. Now there are certain dichotomies. Now what is a dichotomies? Dichotomies like two terms, they stand in contrast with each other. So two terms, if they stand in contrast, that is known as dichotomy. So what is the dichotomy? We have first dichotomy is synchronic and diachronic, also known as synchrony and diachrony. Now what is important here? This chron, chron, this chron or chrono is important. Now what is the meaning of this chron? This is a Greek word. Chrono is a Greek word, and the meaning of chrono is time. So when I say synchronic, that means single point of time. Synchronic is single point of time, and diachronic is across time, through time. That is the meaning. Synchronic is single point of time, and diachronic is across time, through time. So these are two types of studies, two types of approaches when we study linguistics. In synchronic approach, we describe the state of a language at a particular point or period in time. So, for example, if I am working on a language, let's say Dogri, and I am documenting Dogri language. So, what I will do? I will meet different Dogri speakers. I will meet 100, 500 Dogri speakers. I will listen to their language. I will collect data. I will take their interviews. I will do audio and video recording. But what I am doing? I am doing this in a particular point or period in time. Let's say I will take 3 months or 1 year time during this thing. So this entire thing is single point of time. So that means like what is Dogri now? That I am documenting. That type of approach is known as synchronic. And when I want to know what changes in Dogri uh, are there, then I will conduct through time or diachronic study. And how is it possible? First, I will collect data of present day Dogri, and then I will look at books published 50 years ago, 100 years back. I will look at them and try to find out whether the words that are published in those books and the Dogri that is spoken in the present time is same or not, or is there some difference. So this is through time. Or 10 years back, or I can also publish something 10 years back, 20 years back. So when there is some comparison with synchronic and what was the state of particular language in the past, that is known as diachronic study. Now I give you one example. There is a word companion. Now what is the meaning of the word companion? Someone who is with you. Someone who is with you, that becomes your companion. This is the present day meaning of the word companion. But if you look at this word a few centuries back, then you find that the meaning of companion was someone who eats bread with you. So someone who eats bread with you, that person was known as a companion. Because the pan, there is a word like pane in Italian language, and that means bread, and companion con, and it is now com, but con means with. So with bread, that means someone who eats a bread with you, that is your companion. But now the meaning is changed. So when I compare these type of words, like okay, now companion means someone who is with you, and previously it was like someone who eats a bread with you. So there is a difference. This type of study, when I compare the meaning of a word in two different times, that is known as diachronic study. So this is one dichotomy that we need to understand, and these are two approaches. So uh, in one, we simply study, we take a snapshot of a language. In another, we explore the transitions from one language state to the next. Transition is a process. We are also in a transition state. We also evolve. Like what you are, you will not be once you complete this course. So daily you are learning something. You are getting education. You know how to deal with society. So these transitions, they take place all the time, and it is also applicable to language. Now another dichotomy that we have is of descriptive and prescriptive. Now descriptive, prescriptive, they are also two types of uh, approach that we have, that are associated with linguistics. In a synchronic approach, synchronic means when we study a language at a single point of time or a period of time, either we want to give a neutral description of the actual language use. Now, what is the neutral description of the actual language use? That means you go to a field site, you go to a site that you have shortlisted, selected, and you go there and document the language. So you ask, okay, how will you say what is your name in Dogri? Then the person will say, this is the way I will say, what is your name? And you just document it. So that is the actual language used. You go to the speakers, not one speakers, but many speakers. You collect data. Your speakers are also divided into different age groups. Fine. So you are taking a data from 20 years old, 40 years old, 60 years old, above 60. And you are also taking data from educated, uneducated, literate, illiterate, male, female, child, adult. So all such combinations, all such variations are in your data, but this is known as actual language use data. The neutral description you adopt. But when you are teaching someone, let's say English language, you are teaching someone Dogri language, then what will you teach? You will teach, this is the standard way to speak. So you will be more focused on the standard way. So what grammar books are doing? Grammar books are teaching us the standard grammatical correct language use. That is known as prescriptive. It is like a prescription. When you are ill, when you are sick, you go to a doctor, and what doctor does? Doctor writes a prescription. Prescription means eat this, do not eat this, take this medicine during like lunch and dinner, and don't take these medicines like empty stomach. All such things are prescriptions. So again, when we teach grammar, when we teach English language, then in a class, in a formal setting, then our approach is normative. That means we formulate rules for correct language use. So we know that we can say John loves Mary. So loves, it will be Loves, because John is third person singular. But if someone says John love Mary, we will say no, no, it is wrong. Why it is wrong? Because John is third person singular, and for third person singular, you need to use SES form in the present indefinite, in simple present. So what is this? This type of knowledge is known as normative approach. We formulate rules, we follow rules for correct language use. But when we describe, then we are not concerned about teaching someone, but we are simply writing that how things happen in this language. So there is a possibility we find that certain people, they also use non-standard language. Then we will also give place to that that particular uh, uh, that particular example. For example, like in African English, in certain varieties of African English, if they say John love Mary, that is also correct. So there is no specificity of SES. You can say John love Mary, that is also fine. So what is this? This is again a description, and you will say like where such type of language is spoken or where such type of language is used. You just describe that particular area, that particular region. So I stop here, and if you have any doubt, you can raise your doubt. You can ask me.